Deep in the Malaysian state of Kelantan, there's a story. A story of a powerful kingdom that's pretty much vanished from our history books. But here's the thing. Its echoes, they're still around today, and in some really surprising places. So let's talk about the lost kingdom of Jembal.
So what exactly is the connection between a revered modern-day politician and a mythical king who was supposedly born from a stalk of bamboo? I know, it sounds wild, right? But the answer to that puzzle is buried in the history of this lost kingdom. Okay, before we get into all the dates and names, think about this. We call it a lost kingdom, but is it really? I mean, you can still hear its echoes today. You've got villagers speaking a royal language, a family with a very specific, strange food taboo, even public schools named after these ancient kings. And yeah, the biggest one, a famous political family with direct royal roots. All right, here's our game plan for this journey. First, we'll look at where this kingdom even came from, the myth versus the history. Then we'll hit its golden age under Raja Sakti. After that, we dive into the tragic story of Puteri Sedong, see how the dynasty crumbled, and finally bring it all back to today and see what's left of the Jembal legacy.
So let's jump right in at the very beginning. The origin of the Jembal kingdom is fascinating because there are two totally different versions of the story. One is grounded in history and migration, and the other, well, it's pure magic.
Okay, so check this out. On the one hand, you have the historical record. This version says it all started with refugees from the Champa kingdom, that's in modern-day Vietnam. They fled, set up a new settlement, a port, and boom, that became the Jembal kingdom. But then you have the folk legend. This one's about an exiled king from Kedah who stumbles upon two magical children, a boy and a girl. And their marriage is what kicks off the whole royal line. So yeah, two very different stories. And this legend? It gets even wilder. The boy who they named Raja Shakti supposedly just appeared from inside a giant bamboo stalk, a bulung patung. And the girl, Putrim and Akemion, she was said to have emerged from sea foam or buoy. So we're not talking about normal kids here, right? These are beings straight out of nature and magic, and they were destined to create a dynasty.
But, okay, before we get too lost in the fantasy, let's ground ourselves a little. Here's a quote from a modern historian who, get this, is also a direct descendant of the Jembal royals. Chiku Tuan Mat bin Raja Kecil basically says, look, this story is a fabrication, a fantasy. He's not dismissing it, but he's making it clear that it's a beloved myth, part of the heritage, not a literal historical account.
So, whether you believe the myth or the history, both stories lead us to the same place, the kingdom's golden age. We're talking about the 17th century now, the absolute peak of the Jembal dynasty, all under the rule of that legendary figure himself, Raja Sakti.
And just to be clear, the Jembal kingdom wasn't just some fairy tale. It was a real, powerful force. For almost 100 years, it was the dominant power in Kelantan, running things from its capital in an area we now know as Kedai Lailat. This was the real deal. Okay, let's quickly run through the rulers. It all kicks off around 1638 with Raja Sakti I, who manages to unify Kelantan and Patani. His son, Raja Lawyer, takes the throne next. Things get a little messy for a bit after that. You'll even notice Putri Sadeng's name in there, appointing a ruler. And trust me, we are definitely getting to her story. But things eventually calm down under Sultan Omar, who brings in a long, prosperous reign.
All right, now we get to the real heart of the Jembal saga. Seriously, if there's one person from this entire dynasty who has become an absolute legend, it's gotta be Puteri Sadong, Raja Sakti's own daughter. Her story is something else.
So her story starts with a royal proposal. She was famous for her beauty, and the king of Siam, that's modern Thailand, wanted to marry her. But she refused him. She wanted to marry her cousin, Raja Abdullah. Well, the king of Siam did not take rejection well. He sent his forces, invaded, and Putri Sadong was kidnapped, torn away from her husband and her home. So she's gone for years, a captive in Siam. But she's smart and resilient, and she finally secures her freedom and makes her way back home to Kelantan. You can just imagine the homecoming she was hoping for, right? But what she finds is a nightmare. Her husband, Raja Abdullah, had given up hope. He figured she was gone forever, so he had remarried. You can guess what happened next. The confrontation was explosive. And in a moment of pure heartbreak and fury, during this massive argument, Puteri Sedong does something unthinkable. She pulls a hairpin, a sangol, right out of her hair and stabs Raja Abdullah, killing him. The princess was home, but not as a triumphant queen. She returned as a tragic figure, ending the life of the man she'd once loved so deeply.
The kingdom did manage to recover after all that turmoil with Puteri Sodong, but it wasn't meant to last. The end of this mighty dynasty didn't come from some foreign army. Nope, it came from the inside.
So how did it all unravel? It basically happened in 4 steps. 1. The king dies in 1725, leaving a huge power vacuum. 2. A massive power struggle kicks off between the heir, Raja Abdurrahman, and his sister, Rajapah. 3. Rajapah's husband, who's a powerful guy from Patani, steps in and just seizes control for himself. And 4. That's it. An outsider's on the throne, and the direct Jembal line's rule over Kelantan is over. Just like that.
But, just because a dynasty stops ruling doesn't mean its story is over. Not at all. And that brings us right back to where we started, to the present day, and how the Jembal kingdom is still very much alive in modern Kelantan.
You can literally see the kingdom's imprint everywhere. You see it in the people, like the late Tuan Guru Nik Abdulaziz, a hugely respected chief minister of Kelantan who was a direct descendant. You see it in the landmarks, like the tombs of the old kings that are still preserved today. You see it in institutions, schools like SMK Raja Sakti. And you even see it in the culture, like that amazing taboo against eating bamboo shoots, which is a direct callback to their mythical founder born from bamboo.
And this isn't just abstract history, it's deeply personal for the descendants. You've got families who still use old royal court words like patik in their daily conversations. They've even got a whole association dedicated to preserving their family history. And that connection to politics we talked about, it's totally real. Nik Abdulaziz wasn't just some distant relative. He was an advisor to that family association, proudly and actively embracing his lineage.
So, when you look at it all, the story of Jembal is so much more than just a forgotten piece of history. It's this incredible reminder that the past is never really gone, is it? It sticks around in our language, in the places we see every day, in the stories our families tell. And it kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? How many of our own daily traditions are just the quiet echoes of forgotten histories?